forest in South Africa is huge and dense. It provides the timber for the entire village of Knysna and is also loaded onto ships to go to other places as well. But the forest is dark and damp and claustrophobic. The people who live there are in constant fear of the forest and what it contains, elephants especially. And the soil there is very acidic and there isn't very much farming. So why do you think it's fitting that the Van Royens are the forest people, considering its climate and how it's formed? With it being claustrophobic and dense.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good representation of the Van Royens. Like, maybe, like what you said about the forest being acidic and not really farming. Like, maybe they're just not. It's just not a good place to bring up a child.
Especially that makes people feel secluded in there. They're kind of, so then Van Royens are kind of in their own, and then their neighbors are, they're kind of set apart from the rest of the world. And I feel like that's fitting him because then he feels like he can be wise and kind of control his own thing.
And how does Lucas/Benjamin being brought up in another place contrast with his family in the forest? Like, how do their personalities differ, and why do you think?
I think just because he was raised in a different area, and the Van Royens took a lot of pride in what they did, and a lot of pride in the work that they did, especially their lives. So when Benjamin came over there on, kind of that farm, and he wasn't familiar with the woodcutter's occupation and all the stuff that they did, that just made him more of an outcast.
So with this in mind, we're going to move over to the clue. Make sure to keep that in mind.
So I am wearing a more modern twist, I guess, on something a traditional African woman would wear, like bila. The kloof is wide, rolling plains on the other side of the mountains. Life there is hard, but the land provides for anyone who works hard on it. The soil is rocky, but plants grow and can provide some source of income. And it's a perfect landscape for ostriches. It is wide, open, and free. Why do you think that this geography and climate is fitting for the commodities that they live in the kloof? Why do you think that's like a good symbolic of who they are? Why do you think it's fitting that they live there?
What we said about Van Royens being
Can you just go over
And
again
they're
what it's like?
It's open, but like the land is rocky and kind of like harsh, but it's still like, it looks like it would be like a difficult place to live, and it is, but like once you go underneath the surface, the soil has enough to make it an income and to hold like a community. So it looks like it's not such a good place to be on the outside, but on the inside it's open and free and you have what you need.
Well, it's kind of like for the white men that came and took Benjamin, they thought that it wouldn't be a good place for him to live and that he should move to the blacks, but on the inside, really it is where he belonged, and like it was a better place for him to be than in the forest with the Van Royens, and it was a better place for him to grow up, but it didn't look like that on the outside to everybody else,
I think the whole place, the whole kloof is really a kind of representation of Viola herself, because she has lots of hardships that she goes through, but she's still strong and she's still free. That's kind of, she even explains the kloof as there being hard times, but then when it rains, it's beautiful, and that's kind of, like Viola might seem harsh and kind of aggressive sometimes, in my opinion, but then at the same time, she's really powerful and kind of good in her own way.
How do you think the story would be different and the personalities in the characters would be different if the Van Ruins had lived in the Kloof and the Viola had lived in the forest? Like, how do you think the personalities and the lifestyles would be different?
I think like Fiona would like worry a lot more if she lived in the forest, because I think that's about how when the kids are like playing with like the ostrich, how she's like scared that they're gonna get too close and it's gonna like kick them and stuff. So I think she'd definitely be like a lot more worried and more protective like if they lived in the forest, because it is so much more dangerous.
How do you think the personalities of Benjamin in the Kloof and Lucas in the forest were different? Like how, because of like the geography where he was at in these different places, how do you think they differed or were similar?
Well, in the Kloof, I feel like as a child he was a lot more free to run around and play with clothes who he wants. And then when he got to the forest, he, like Nikki said, it was a lot more confined, so he became more confined and like never wanted to leave the forest, like for different reasons, but he still was confined, and so his personality became more closed, I guess, I don't know.
I think his attitude about it was different too, because he was born and raised in such a big area, and the fact that he was forced to kind of move into Van Ruins, and he had to go with that family. The fact that it was like a close space, and he was always around these new people who didn't really help. So his mindset was different.
Alright, good. Now, if you've gotten anything out of this presentation so far, I think it should be that even though a lot of South Africa's climate is difficult, it's very supportive. There's always stuff you gotta deal with and overcome. So, you're all gonna get to do that. Woo! Difficulties, okay? So here's how we're gonna do work. We're in teams. So, we're all gonna come over here.
Record.
Yeah, y'all are gonna come over here.